Hello, thank you for everyone for attending. This is SeeWing Yee from the Yee Real Estate Network, a turnkey provider of out-of-state investment for out-of-state investors from all over the country, but in particular California. However, anyway, we do business everywhere. Similar to my special guest speaker, many of you already know him. His name is Richard.advani from Supreme Lending. He run a very successful investment loan brokerage and for many, many years. And although he does loans in all 50 states, mostly investment loans, he also do owner-occupied primary homeowners loans throughout the country, in particular California, since both he and I are physically located in California. I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and Richard in Southern California. So living a good life. Anyway, so without further ado, Richard and I, we're going to discuss how to extract wealth from your portfolio. What I'm trying to say is, I'm gonna put together two hypothetical examples. Then I'm going to challenge Richard to come up with a solution, being that he's an investment loan agent for our network, as well as to many, many other real estate investment networks throughout the country. So he has done tons of business with our network and other network as well. Anyway, so, okay, here's a hypothetical situation. What I mean by that, how to extract wealth out of your portfolio. Now, I'm gonna use hypothetical situation. It's pretty realistic. So the assumption I'm using is two scenarios. One, a California investor right now have a primary home, a principal home, owner-occupied home. For example, this person bought this principal home in the Bay Area for $500,000, perhaps 4 years ago. Today, that property has increased to 1 million. And this is realistic. This is happening. In a mere 4 years, this $500,000 property has increased double in California, here in the Bay Area. In a good area, of course, San Jose, Palo Alto, the city of San Francisco, and East Bay, Fremont, Tri-Valley, whatever. So $1 million, okay, that's the premise. We're using that $1 million market value right now. The loan balance on this house is around $400,000. So this situation, this homeowner have tons of equity. So the question is, Richard, no, don't answer yet. I have another hypothetical for you. The answer is, what should this individual do? The goal is this individual want to buy tons of turnkey out-of-state property for cash flow purposes to retire 10 to 15 years later to achieve massive passive income. He had this chunk of equity in this California home. Let me use another real hypothetical. It happened to some of my investors. This investor hypothetically have purchased an investment property in Austin, Texas 4 years for $180K. Yes, my network was promoting a single family home in Austin, Texas 4 years ago through Ken Venner, outside Austin, specifically in Round Rock, Georgetown area, north of Austin. $180K, I think, 4 years ago. Now this property, I believe, is selling for market value around $400,000. I repeat, I did not stutter, did I? I mean, this is very unique. Not every market has gone through this tremendous, massive boom like it happened in Austin. I say it again, $180K, this investor of ours bought it with 20% down payment 4 years ago in Round Rock, Texas, right above Austin. Now it's $400K fair market value. So the loan balance of the investor is $150K, Richard, and the market value is $400,000. So this investor are entertaining the scenario with Richard of how to tap into the equity of this rental property, right? And and do a cash out refinance to buy more property for cash flow purposes in good areas. So Richard, in your mind as a loan agent, so do some crunching the numbers, jot it down. So first of all, let's go over the home situation in California. What if this individual will come to you as an investment loan agent that you are right now? How would you extract the wealth, the equity from the California home? Using what method? Cash out refinance, home equity line of credit, and what are the pros and cons? What are the risks involved of doing this, and how do you mitigate the risk whereby this potential investor in California can have the confidence and the comfort level to take action per what you're going to say? All right, with that in mind, go ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. So in general, in both those scenarios, firstly, the most inexpensive and the cheapest money you're going to get is taking it out of your primary home if you're comfortable with that. And generally, of course, primary homes are a little less risk than investment properties, so correspondingly they have lower rates. Now, in that scenario where you bought a primary home at 500,000, give or take, it's worth $1 million today. You have a couple of different ways to access the cash, and the best path forward really is going to depend on your current loan and a couple other situations. Now, those two paths forward are in no particular order. A, getting a home equity line on the home, and we'll talk about that a little. And that's essentially a second mortgage on the home, which leaves your first mortgage as is. And then B would be refinancing the current first mortgage into a new mortgage with the cash out. Now, each one of those has their pros and cons. Firstly, a first mortgage is going to be obviously fixed for the duration. And generally, it's going to have a lower rate than a second mortgage, because a second mortgage or an equity line, and when I say second mortgage or equity line, they're one and the same, essentially. But the rate on an equity line or second mortgage are generally variable, so they can change monthly with the prime rate. And also, those rates generally are, once again, going to be a little higher. On top of that, generally, home equity lines are set up with a 30-year total amortization. And the first 10 years of that is the draw period, where you can withdraw money from it and pay it back as you please. After those 10 years, it reverts to a fully amortized 20-year payment. So in addition to the rates being variable, the monthly payment itself is going to go up generally 10 years later. So it's not as secure of a product. Now, when I mentioned other factors earlier that help contribute to the best path forward is, well, if you have a $400,000 first mortgage right now at 3.875, and the market rate today is 3.0 for a new first mortgage, then it may behoove you to take that cash out, let's call it 200,000 in this example, through a new first mortgage, right? Because it's a lower rate. It's a 30-year fixed. It's going to lower the rate you have on the existing first mortgage as well. So it's a win-win. And that's what we're seeing a lot of right now. People are accessing cash and their payments barely going up because they're also lowering the interest rate. Now, let's say it's a year and a half from now, and you took advantage of that 3.0 or 2.875 primary home loan, and you want to access cash and rates are higher, right? So if market rates are 4.5% and you're at 2.875, odds are, depending on how much cash you're taking out, you're probably going to want to get a second mortgage, right? Because you want to retain that low interest rate on your first mortgage. So those are things we'll kind of discuss as you're trying to access the capital. One other thing to keep in mind is when you take the capital out of a first mortgage, as soon as that loan closes, that money is sent to your bank account, and you're paying interest on that money as well. If you don't have projects lined up, that money could be sitting in an investment account or in a bank account, not earning money yet, and of course, you're paying interest. However, an equity line, on the other hand, Let's say we set up a $200,000 line of credit for you. You're only going to pay interest when you borrow from that line. And you're only going to pay interest on the amount that you borrow from that line itself as well. So, you know, if you're kind of on the fence, obviously, of when you're going to use that capital, then an equity line could be a good option. But in general, what I tell people is an equity line is a short-term vehicle, right? Typically, what people will do is once they max out their equity line, knowing that it's not a fully amortized fixed product, at that time, they'll try to combine it with their first mortgage. So if you have relatively near-term plans to use the capital, my preference between the two of them is getting a new first mortgage, especially today with where interest rates are. I mean, inflation rate, God knows what it is right now. The feds are still trying to figure it out, but I mean, it's got to be 3-4%. So if you're getting a 30-year fixed under 3%, it's free money.
Okay, yeah, those are very good options. What I hear you saying, Richard, is that it depends on a person's situation, their goal, their objectives, and something when you do your initial loan consultation with the buyer, you will be able to tailor-make a solution for them. But having said that, obviously, when somebody do a cash out refinance to replace the first mortgage, of course, for example, for 200 grand cash out, of course, there are higher payments, relatively speaking, or another. So we have, so how are you going to offset the higher payments? Of course, to use the money to buy cash flow properties. That's a no-brainer for our purposes. But on the other hand, the line of credit is a little bit different. Another definition of line of credit is HELOC, HELOC, right? There's an industry term, the HELOC. So let's use this hypothetical. The buyer will, after obtaining the HELOC, the line of credit for 200 grand per our example, and this person gonna spend all 200 grand, let's say, to buy 3 out-of-state investment properties. Okay, so 200 grand at, think about it, Richard, 200 grand at what interest rate from the line of credit? So what will be the monthly payment? Quickly answer this question, Richard, then I will proceed with my.
About $900.
Say it again?
About $900.
Okay, so the interest rate on the HELOC is right now is how much? What is it?
Generally, HELOCs are in the 4% range.
All right. Okay, understand. Okay, so okay, try to bear with me. So the monthly payment is $900 to borrow against the 200 grand total, right? Once well swoop, right? $900 monthly.
Correct.
Interest only. So so investor have to do.
That $900 is if the money was paid on a first mortgage. If it was interest only on an equity line, the monthly payment would be about $670 a month.
All right. Okay. Between 670 and 900. Yeah, I'm trying to prove my point. So the buyer is out $600 to $900 depending on the two loan scenarios. So with that money, with the 200 grand, let's say the investor is going to buy. Using that money to buy to buy 4 out-of-state rental. So that means 50 grand, maybe not 4, maybe 3, okay? So $66,000 down payment per rental, 25% down, for example. I'm trying to offset the cash flow from the higher payment, from the cost of borrowing to, so we can do the mumbo jumbo number to make it a comfort level. So this investor is going to buy 3 properties out of state. Let's say, for the sake of our discussion, one property is going to be in Florida, Cape Coral, for example, at $300,000 single family home that rents for $2,200. So at 25% down payment, the monthly net cash flow from this purchase, let's say, is around $300. All right, this investor is going to buy. Richard, your video was gone. Okay, this investor, the second property, this investor could buy in San Antonio, brand new construction in San Antonio. Right now, $240K. It rents for $1,700 or $1,750 per month. Projection wise, illustration wise, at 25% down payment, and the monthly net cash flow is around $350. And finally, the third property, this investor is going to buy in this new construction in Alabama at $230K, 25% down payment. The monthly rent here is around $1,700 at 25% down payment. The monthly cash flow is $400. So 400 plus 300 plus 350. What is it? 400, 700. Let's say 1,000. Does it make sense? $1,000 of total monthly net cash flow per month at 25% down payment, right? For 60 grand total out of pocket, including closing costs. So this entire 200 grand is used on a cash out refinance or the line of credit, HELOC, to buy. The cost of borrowing is 600 to 900, like you said, I think. And then the net monthly cash flow to offset the higher monthly payment for the buyer is almost 1,000 with a 3 property purchase. So if you, Richard, after you make this recommendation on the loan strategy, if you put yourself in the shoe of a buyer, of an investor, how would you feel? How comfortable would you feel? What are the risks? What are the reward? Tell me your thought. You've done this many times over the years, Richard. So if you put yourself in the shoe of an investor, given the situation, the scenario we just painted, is this a potentially good strategy? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, essentially, it's almost leveling up, right? You're buying 3 additional properties using the equity of a property you have now. Those 3 properties are generating enough cash flow to cover the payment on the debt that you incurred to purchase them. Maybe you have $100 left over, give or take. But one thing you did mention is, so it's a level up, right? You buy these 3 properties, you diversify that equity you had in that first property a little better as well. And given where the market is right now, there may not be a ton of front-end cash flow once you once again pay that $600 to $900 worth of debt. However, it's important to factor in too your return on amortization. So you are paying down those loan balances, or rather the tenant is paying down the loan balances on that money that you borrowed initially, right? Because you're paying that $900 a month plus the 3 properties you bought. So if you would actually add up the amount of money that's going to principal on those 3 properties you bought, plus of course the debt you're servicing on the $200,000, it's going to be $250, maybe even $300 to $400 per property. So you're actually creating over $1,000 conservatively a month in wealth, right? These acquisitions aren't going to give you a bunch of cash flow to go buy a Ferrari. Not that that's what any of our clients would do. They're going to help with creating long-term wealth, and that's how it's done. And it's long-term wealth also, as any of us who bought real estate in the last 10 years will attest to. We bought a lot of properties with a certain ROI in mind, and they've been meeting those ROIs. But in the last year or so, rents have gone up dramatically. 25, 30% in most of the areas I own properties. So now the cash flow is doubled, right? Your ROI that you were looking for has gone up dramatically as well. So, that's really how I think real estate builds long-term wealth is, you hold it and you generate cash flows, and the cost of goods goes up, cost of everything else goes up, the rents go up, but you're still locked into a 30-year fixed mortgage. And the longer you have it, the more dividends it pays.
Well, Richard, I think you said it all. This is one of the strategy to build wealth. We just, minimize the risk associated with it. But as an investor, you have to take a little bit of risk. And the scenario we just painted, really, if you think long term, it really makes sense. Of course, there are other ways you can use money to buy investment real estate. You can use cash for financing. You can use IRA, many different things. But today, for the time that we have, we're just touching upon, the pros and cons of cashing out refinance or using a HELOC. And also, by the way, we forgot about using the rental property, the scenario, the Austin property, 400 grand, fair market value, the loan balance is 150. So how are you gonna do if an investor were to refinance that rental property, what does it look like just quickly?
Yeah, so generally you're going to be able to access 75% of the home's value. So in that case, they had a loan of 150,000. They bought it for 200. It's worth 400 today. They're able to take a total loan of 300,000, which would give them, about 140 to 150,000 net cash out.
Okay, I'm doing some calculation. Okay, so what I hear you saying, I'm using my calculator right now. Didn't cash out. I mean, 75% of 400,000 is 300,000 minus 150 for the loan. So the investor have $150,000 equity from the cash out refinance of their rental property. Am I correct?
Correct.
Wow, that's not bad. 150 grand. Yeah. 150 grand can buy the investor another 2 or 3 properties at 20% down payment somewhere else for cash flow properties. So is it amazing that you and I have many videos and podcasts we have done recently, right? Talk about leverage, talk about loans, talk about good debt and all that stuff. And today, this quick webinar is just kind of give you some real life example of how that works. Am I right, Richard?
No, it definitely is. And those are real scenarios. So,
yep. Okay, I think that's it. That's all we have. I think we have precisely, concisely, summarizing wise, have given investors out there, some of you are on the fence about what kind of strategy to use. Obviously, everybody's situation is different. Of course, any investor, in particular the one in my network, you can contact me directly, and I will, from a high level, I will go over your investment goals and strategy, go over your motivation to determine, how to help you take action, create a realistic financial plan, so you can execute on your plan. So going to help you build your wealth. And then, of course, Richard is part of the loan agent, part of my team. He's a very important member of my team, of course, for the reason pretty obvious after what we discussed today. So consult with Richard.advani. Also, in conjunction with consult with me, we work together quite often over the years to review your loan strategy as we discuss typically in this particular presentation. So that's so before we let you go, so what is your recap, a 30-second summary from your perspective, Richard?
Well, I know you mentioned people on the fence. I'd say if you're on the fence, as I say every time, get off the fence, or wait until the market goes up another 30% and say, oh, well, it's too late, it's past. Those of you on the fence, I guarantee you've been telling yourself that the last 5 to 8 years, that, oh, I missed it, it's gone up. Oh, well, I'll wait for the next downturn, I'll wait for the next crash. Oh, well, you keep giving yourself reasons not to do it. Investing in real estate out of state is real. Most of the country doesn't just live on the coast, or they don't live in California. And a lot of people, when I buy real estate and in places, they're like, whoa, who would want to live there? What happens if everyone leaves? And it's funny because you go to these places and they're hustling and bustling towns and cities as big as the cities we live in. And, you go up to someone there and ask them, hey, what do you think about if everyone left town? They look at you really like you're crazy, because they're like, they couldn't imagine that. But they're strong economies. And I think people the last year or so are starting to realize it because it's all over the news. As California has been appreciating 5%, you got places like Austin appreciating 25%. And the appreciation is based on really, really strong fundamentals this time around. So it's simple supply and demand. So if you're on the fence, get off the fence. What happens if property values drop in 2 years? Well, bring your dollar cost average down and buy more.
Right. That's right, Richard. You and I on a same boat, in a same wavelength. So take action. You can make money or you can make excuses, but you cannot do both. So with that said, thank you for attending. Richard.advani from Supreme Lending, my partner, my friend, my co-advisor, co-presenter. We will have more great content every weekly, hopefully, or time permits, which is very busy doing loans. So I really appreciate your time to allocate every week to help me present my webinars. Thank you so much, Richard.advani from Supreme Lending. Thank you everyone for attending. This is SeeWing Yee from the Yee Real Estate Network. I will see you on the other side. Have a nice day. Goodbye.